Hi there, so for this video I'm going to teach you how to create some basic documents in HTML and to learn it from the very beginning. So my outline for this video is I will first explain what is HTML, what's the basic HTML structure, what is an HTML tag, how is it different from the HTML element, how do you create your first HTML file, and how do you open it using your browser. So even if you don't have any background in HTML, when opening this video, you will still be able to start it or learn it from scratch. I will also be discussing the essence of the doc type declaration in HTML. How do you use the comment tag, other basic formatting tags, and then we end with some discussion on character entities. So there will be other videos on HTML in my channel, and this is going to be our focus for this video. So let's begin with the definition of what is HTML. So HTML is a standard markup language for web pages. It's very easy to learn. You don't have to be a programmer to learn how to create a web page using HTML or use HTML codes. It actually is an acronym that stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it allows you to create your own website. Right? So that's the easiest definition of HTML. So other things that you need to know about HTML is that it consists of a series of elements that tell the browser how to display the content. So it will specifically inform the browser, this is a paragraph, this is a table, this is how the table should look like, among other things. So basically it allows the browser to understand or interpret what should be the layout that you want it to do for you. So think of HTML elements as label pieces of content. So it tells the browser, this is the heading, this is the paragraph, this is the link, this is the table, this is the image that I want you to display where, among other things. So another thing about HTML is that it's not case sensitive. So your small p enclosed within your angle brackets, is what I will explain further later, is the same as your capital P. Alright, so but for the purpose of uniformity, for this video and the remaining other videos that we will discuss, we will use the small letters. Okay, so to help you understand the HTML page structure, here is a visualization. Alright, so you have here, you have your HTML tag at the top. It has a corresponding end tag, which starts with a slash. So slash HTML at the bottom. So there should be a pair, and it should not look like a spaghetti or be arranged or structured like a spaghetti. You have two very basic and very important parts of your HTML structure. You have the head and the body. So inside the head, you have your title, which I will also discuss further later, and you have the body. So basically the head is the one that is displayed on top of your tab or on top of your browser, and then you have the body, which is the content of your page. So as you can see, you have inside the body, that's going to be where your paragraphs will come in, your tables, your headings, your images, among other things. So that's basically where the content of your website will be placed. So please try to understand how this structure is created. So there's a body and a slash body tag. So there should not be any tag for the content that goes outside of the body tag. In the same way, if you create a title tag, for instance, it should not go out of the head tag. So you have to close it first. Okay, so and then you have the head, the slash head part of your web page or your HTML code. Okay, so please adhere to this structure so that you will not be having a hard time later on. So what you see here is already a standard acceptable structure of an HTML file. It starts with the HTML/HTML code, and you have two parts. You have the title and then you have the body. However, I would suggest that we add one more part in this particular file, and that is your document type, and I will explain further why this is important, and that's basically to standardize the format of your HTML file. So the previous file that I showed you is exactly the same as this, except that we added the exclamation point doc type HTML. Okay, so I will explain further what the exclamation point doc type HTML means in later, but let me first continue by discussing more about the HTML tags. So you might have noticed that all of the files in HTML has what you see has this code that starts with the less than and greater than sign, or probably you know that better as angle brackets. So these are actually HTML tags. So they are used to mark up HTML elements, which I will also discuss later. So let's focus on the tags, the ones that starts with starts with the less than sign and ends with a greater than sign, or probably otherwise called as the angle brackets. So they are enclosed in angle brackets. So this HTML tags actually come in pairs. So for instance, you have the P/P code, or you have the body/body tag. You have the title/title HTML tags. So everything has a pair. Now, although later on you will also see that there are specific tags in HTML that doesn't have a pair. So the text between the start and the end tags is what you call the element content. Alright, so for instance here, you have the title and the /title tags. You have main page. The main page there is what we call the element content. So there's also what you call an HTML element in HTML, and that basically starts from the starting tag. Okay, like in the case of the example earlier, you have title/title, and it ends with the end tag. So HTML element again starts by, or is defined by a start tag, the sum content in between, and an end tag. So for instance, you have here your opening tag H1, which stands for header 1, and the content that goes in between, and then the /H1 tag, and that is what composes your HTML element. So I have specified examples of these tag names here. Aside from your header 1 or H1, there's also your P/P, which is another example. Then you have the specific example which actually is missing the slash, so let's add a slash there. Alright, so this is an example of HTML element. Okay, so it starts with the start tag and ends with a pair of the tag, and all the other contents in between is also referred to as an element content. Alright, or as an HTML element. So some HTML elements do not have content. Like for instance, the one on the table, the one that is enclosed with the angle bracket BR, actually stands for break. Alright, so it's actually called an empty elements because they do not have an end tag. Alright, so there are codes in HTML that doesn't have the beginning and an end tag. So it's called an empty element. Now, so let's go back to the example that I showed earlier. See, if you remember, we added the exclamation point doc type HTML in the beginning of our HTML file. or the first row of our HTML file. So all HTML documents must start with the doc type declaration. So it's basically just an information that you want to inform your browser about the kind of document that it should expect. So in this case here, because we are writing an HTML5 code, alright, so we have to put the asterisk doc type HTML. Now please note that just like any other tags in HTML, the exclamation point doc type is not case sensitive. So you can write doc type in small letters or a combination of uppercase and small letters or lowercase letters. This is another example of a simple HTML document. So this one is now complete. It starts with the doc type, and then you have the HTML/HTML tag. Inside your head/head, you have your title, and that is where you basically put your page title. And then you have your body/body. Inside it is your heading, alright, or your head, and then your paragraph. Some of these tags will be explained further later. So just try to understand what is inside here and what will happen when you run this in the browser. But before that, okay, I guess I have to show you what happens when you run this code or when you open this particular file in your browser. And that's exactly going to show this. So basically, when you open your HTML file in your browser, in any browser for that matter, you can open this in Chrome, in Edge, Firefox, Safari. So the browser will be able to interpret or read the HTML documents and display them correctly based on your tags. So basically, a browser does not display the tags itself, but it uses them to determine how to display that particular document. Yeah, so later on I will demonstrate how you actually create an HTML file using Notepad and then open it in a browser. But for now, let us first put our code side by side with the result or the output that we see in our browser. So this one is a code that you saw earlier. So it starts with the doc type, which is simply to inform our browser that this is an HTML file. And then we have the HTML/HTML tags, which encloses both our header and our body, okay, or our head and our body rather. So within the head/head tags, you have the title/title tags. And if you look at your output behind this code, you have your page title, and behind the code here, the background is what you will actually see inside your browser. Notice that you have page title on top of your index name, and that's because you have place title or page title within your title/title tags. So whatever you put inside these codes will be displayed on top of your browser, okay, in this case as the name of your tab. Now inside your body/body tags, you have h1/h1, that's the first line, and it displays my first heading. So basically h1 here is a tag that displays your heading. There are actually other codes aside from h1. It ranges from h1 to h6, and I will show you the difference of these later on. But for now, we see h1/h1, and you have my first heading, and that is that describes, or that's the reason why you have my first heading displayed very big on your website content. And then you have a paragraph, which simply displays my first paragraph. Alright, so I will show you how other implications of your p/p tags in other slides later. Okay, so I hope that makes it a lot clearer for you now as to how or where everything goes when you put it inside your title or your head/head and your body/body tags. Alright, so how do you create and how do you save your HTML file? There are actually a lot of editors available online where you can create your HTML files, but for the sake of everyone, okay, since Notepad is very accessible, we can actually at the very least use Notepad. So you can go to your desktop, you can go ahead and press your start button. You can open your Notepad or search for it under Programs, Accessories. You'll have Notepad, or you can use your search bar to search for your Notepad application, and then you can type in your HTML code much the same way as when you type in your text, normal text inside Notepad. Now, when you're supposed to start saving, this is where the difference comes in. Alright, so you have to use the file extension HTML or HTML. So I will show you how this is done later. And you have to take note where the file is going to be located, because you will have to open that later using your browser. Or alternately, you can also open your file explorer and you can go to recent files and open that particular file that you just created. Alright, so that's why you need to locate the file location and open the file and open it using your browser. So I'm going to demonstrate it right now. Okay, so regardless of how you opened your Notepad, whether you use a search bar or you really went to the extent of clicking your start button and looking for your Notepad, as long as you're able to open it. So here it is. I have already opened Notepad, and of course by default nothing is inside. It's empty, and the file is still untitled because that means you have not yet saved anything. So I'll just go ahead and paste the code. Okay, that will make it easier, but of course in your case you'll have to write this one by one. It's actually very easy. It's just a matter of typing the exclamation point doctype HTML, and then just make sure that you have a pair of each of those tags that has a pair. Otherwise it might not display correctly later on. Alright, so and also what I said in the previous slides before, you have to make sure that aside from it having a pair, if that particular tag has a pair, you have to make sure that it doesn't look like a spaghetti, which means, for example, if you have head, title, you have to close the latest tag first. So that means here you have to start with the title and not close the head first and then the title, because it will overlap. So whatever is the last last tag that you need to close, you have to close that first, and then after that you have to close the head. So it should not be like this, wherein you have to close the head first and then the title, because that will really that's going to be an error and that will cause problems in your codes later on. Alright, so once you feel that it's already complete, of course, with in the middle of your typing your code, especially if you start coding very long HTML codes, you can of course save it. So how do you save it? You can just press Ctrl S, just like any other program, or you can go ahead and go to File and then Save. Now, the moment you save it, because it's the first time that we save the file, alright, of course it's going to look or wait for you to type in a file name for it. Alright, so what you can do is, let me just go ahead and save this under Documents, and let's just create a folder for this. So for example, samples for class. Okay, alright, and so the file will be saved under the folder samples for class under Documents, and then by default, so the file name is *.txt. So in other words, if you don't specify a file name extension, it will be saved as a txt file, which is something that we do not want to do. Alright, so we have to save it as an HTML file. So in this case, you have to change the setting under Save as Type. So it should not be *text. You have to change it to all files, so that this will give you an opportunity to type in the file name extension yourself. Alright, so for example, you type in here sample1.html. So you have to specify .html, and so the file will be saved as sample1.html rather than sample1.txt. Okay, because otherwise you will have a problem opening that in your browser later on. Alright, so once you're done, you just click save, and as you can see, the untitled earlier is now sample1, and then you can go ahead, look for that file later on and open it in your browser. Alright, so I have opened File Explorer, and the easiest way that you could find your file, of course, is if you go to Quick Access, and you'll find sample1. If you forgot where you saved your file, you can right click on your file that you have opened, and you can go and click Open File Location, and that will tell you that you have actually saved your file under this PC Documents Samples for Class. So you can just click it under that particular file. You don't actually have to go to the file location. You can also do the same thing that I'm about to do under Quick Access, and then you just right click, you just select Open With, and you can actually choose what browser you want to open this particular file in. So I'll just go ahead and select Microsoft Edge, or of course you can double click on this file and it will just open the default browser that is set on your computer. So never mind this one, right? So as you can see here, you have just opened your HTML file. So that's how easy it is to create an HTML file and open it in your browser. So this is something that you can replicate in the succeeding slides, which means that if you have any changes to this file, all you have to do is to update it. Like say for example, alright, so if you make changes to your file, all you have to do is to save it and then refresh your file, and it will be reflected on your browser. So that's precisely what you'll be doing in the next activities that we will have. You update your HTML file based on the instruction that I gave you, or if you want to test some of the lessons that I share, and then you can go ahead and update a particular file, refresh it, or you can of course create a new file and open it in your browser again and do the same thing. I'm sure you can manage. Okay, so at this point I want you to pause this video and start creating your first HTML file, and then open it in the default browser that you may have on your computer. Okay, so we're back with some more basic HTML tags. I hope that you have tried at least a line or two of your first file, and then let us try and update your file with the following new tags that I'm about to share. So we already know about the HTML title, the body tags, and I'm going to share in the next slides what H1 to H6 means. So this is what I mentioned earlier, which is for your header 1 to 6. I will show you an example of what each of them actually mean. I will also be sharing with you information on what a comment is and how you define a comment in HTML. So some of you who have background in programming probably already understand what a comment is for. So for HTML, we use the exclamation point and the dashes to specify our comment. So we also have a horizontal rule, and we also have a paragraph, and we have a break. So maybe in between the discussion of these new tags, you can pause the video and you can update your file and see what happens as it displays or tries to interpret those HTML codes in your browser. So I'm going to start with the comment. So as mentioned earlier, you have this particular tag to specify your comment. And so basically all you have to do is to enclose it with the exclamation point, double dash, and then the content of that documentation or comment that you want, that you don't want to display but you want to put inside your code as part of your documentation for yourself or for the other programmers of your site. So this code basically is not interpreted or shown in your browser when you open the file. So I have here an example of a file that has a comment. So you have, this is a comment, and then you have comments are not displayed in the browser. So notice that these two comments are placed before and after the paragraph that displays this is a paragraph. But if you're going to retype this particular code and you run this one or you open this one in your browser, what you will see in your browser is only this is a paragraph in your content. So that means to say that anything that you type or you input inside your comment tag in HTML is not at all displayed on your browser as part of the output of your HTML code. Another discussion that I want to include is the differences between each of the headers in HTML. So I have here H1 to H6 are all headers, so it would look different compared to your normal paragraph or normal text. So note that the smaller is the number, the bigger is the text. So each one here is the biggest, followed by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So all you have to do is to enclose them with H1 slash H1, H2 slash H2, and so on and so forth until H6 to identify or to specify that this text is indeed a heading or a header. So you may also try this one yourself. You may edit the file that you have already created so far and just add a header. See how different it is compared to a normal paragraph. Now this one is another discussion that I want to emphasize. You have your first paragraph here, and as you have noticed, in between the first and the second paragraph is a BR code. Now, as mentioned in the previous slide or videos, there are actually some tags in HTML that does not require or does not have an end tag. So in this case, BR is one of them. So there is no such thing as /BR, and what it actually does is it actually creates a break. So it's like pressing an extra enter key in between the other elements, or before and after the element where you put the BR code. So if you have noticed in paragraph 2 and 3, now as you can see here on the right side of your screen, you have, this is the normal spacing between two paragraphs. But if you have noticed, there is an additional space in between the first and the second. That is because we have added the BR tag in between the first and the second paragraphs. So if you remove that, the space in between the first and second will look like the space that is shown here on the second and the third. Alright? Okay. I also want to emphasize that even if you put the P/P tag on the same line together, the output will still be the same. So here, the P/P tags is the one that determines how each of these blocks of text are grouped together or treated as a paragraph. Okay, so that is emphasized here. Now, this one is actually an example of another tag in HTML that doesn't have an end tag, and that is HR. So HR stands for horizontal rule. So as you can see here in the output, in between paragraph and 1 and 2, there is a line in between, and that is because of your HR tag, which is found right after the first paragraph of your code. Now, right after that is the second paragraph. As you can see, you have your end tag here, /p, and it immediately is followed by the third paragraph. Okay, now, even though there is no space in the actual HTML tag or codes, As you can see, there is a space in between the paragraphs when you open this in your browser. Okay, so at this point, again, I want you to experiment and to try those codes that I have just discussed, and just unpause the video once you are done. Alright, let's proceed with other text formatting tags that are also available on HTML. So not all of these may be displayed differently depending on your browser and depending on your operating system. So let me just share some of them. You have bold, you have big, you have M for emphasize, you have I for italic. Sometimes emphasize and bold would look the same. Small, strong, subscript, superscript, acronym, black quote, del, ins for inserted text, and U for underline. So I want you to experiment on all of these codes that are shown on your screen. I'm going to share with you an example of some of these codes and show you how it will look like when you open it in the browser. So for instance here, take note that in your paragraph learning HTML, notice that HTML is enclosed with a B/B code, and that will simply convert your HTML, the word HTML, into bold. So as you can see on the right side, you have HTML, which is different from the rest of the sentence. And then on the second sentence, you have another phrase, novice programmers, enclosed in I/I code or tags. That tag is going to convert your text into italics, is what you can see on the right side of your screen again. Alright, so these are just some of the examples that I could share with you based on the slide that I showed you earlier. So you can go ahead and go back to that and practice some of the other codes. I have also added the superscript and the subscript. So as you can see here, you have at the bottom, you have another paragraph which displays, this is an example of X, and then you have superscript, sup, 2, and then /sup. So that simply stands for superscript, and so that explains why on the right side of your screen, your browser will interpret it as a superscript and put or display the number 2 as a superscript. And again, you're tagging or you're specifying, your code in HTML specifies that 2 here should be a subscript, okay, as evidenced by putting sub/sub or enclosing 2 with sub/sub code. And so that code will convert your number 2 for your H2O into a subscript, and that explains why you now have H2O displayed like that on your browser when you open your file. Okay, so at this point again, I want you to go back to the additional tags that I have shown for formatting earlier, and I want you to try it out. Moving on to character entities. There are already characters in HTML that has a specific meaning, like for instance, the angle brackets or the less than and the greater than sign. So how do we display characters like these in HTML? And that's the role of your character entities. So a character entity has 3 parts. It starts with the ampersand, an entity name, and the other option is you use the number sign and an entity number, and finally a semicolon. So let me show you examples of these character entities in the next slide. So for instance, you have here the results. So this is your expected or the character that you want to display. This is the description, and then you have the entity name and the entity number. So first and foremost, let's start with a non-breaking space, or otherwise your space. So first, that's why there's no result here, because you cannot see it. It's invisible. So one way that you can put a space because remember that spaces are governed by the tags. So a p/p tag is very specific for a paragraph. So there's a specific spacing in between words and a specific spacing in between paragraphs. So how do you add additional spaces if you want to? So one way is you can use the entity name. So as mentioned earlier, your entity name starts with the ampersand and the name of the entity and then the semicolon, or you have the entity number. So which is the ampersand, the number sign, the corresponding number or the entity number, and then the semicolon. So of course between the two, it will be more easier to relate or to remember the entity name rather than the entity number. But either of these works the same way, you'll be able to get the same result or output, right? So in other words, to create a space, one space for that instance, all you have to do is to use the entity name, which is ampersand NBSP semicolon, or you use the entity number, which is ampersand number sign 160 and then semicolon. I will show you examples of these later on. So the same way, if you want to display a less than sign, you use the ampersand LT and then semicolon, which stands for less than, and then, or you can remember the entity number 60 and of course proceed it with the ampersand and the number sign and then end it with a semicolon, just like your space. Now the same is true for the greater than sign. So you use GT, okay, again in between the ampersand sign and the semicolon, or you use the corresponding entity number. To display the ampersand is to use the ampersand and then the word amp and then followed by the semicolon, or you can use the entity number again. Or to display the quotation mark and the apostrophe, because later on in our discussion you will learn that there are this single quote or double quote has special meanings for HTML. So how do you display quotation mark and apostrophe? You just use quote or apos. Alright, so of course Internet Explorer doesn't work anymore, so have a look and experiment on how this one will display using your Microsoft Edge. So other characters, which there are actually more characters entities than the ones that are shown on your screen right now, but these are the most commonly used ones. So if you are thinking of displaying a particular character, you can research on its corresponding entity name and entity number. Or you can of course use an image, that's another option. But if it's just a normal text or part of your text, the easiest way that you can do it is to create or to make use of your character entities. So to display cent, pound, yen, euro, section, copyright, registered trademark, your multiplication sign or your division, you can also use the following entity names or the entity number. So please try and spend time in experimenting or trying this out one by one on your browser, okay, by editing your code and trying out how it will look like in your browser. And so by showing you some examples here, for instance, if you want to display the copyright symbol, you can use either ampersand copy semicolon 2022 and it will be displayed as C 2022 like this on the right side of your screen. Now please take note that because please take note, I will expand on that later. Please take note that because these two characters are not enclosed within the p/p tags, these two are displayed in one line when you open this in your browser. Alright, but also take notice that the first code here is using the entity name and the other one is using the entity number, which actually are the same. So it displays the same symbol, which is the copyright symbol. Alright, so there's another example here. So that means if you want to put them or display them like this in two lines, alright, you can use the BR code or the break code, or you can put them in two paragraph tags, which is the p/p for the first one and another p/p for the second one. Or as I said already, you can use your break code. Alright, So again, at this point, I want you to go back to all of those examples and codes of the entity characters that I have discussed with you earlier, and I want you to try it out. Please pause your video. Okay, so just to recap, for this video, we have learned to define what is HTML. We also learned to recognize the basic HTML structure, what are the tags and how is it different from the element in HTML. We also learned to create your first HTML file and open it using the default browser in your computer. I even experimented with you or demonstrated with you how you could update your file, save it again, and refresh its output on your browser, and even to search it on your file explorer. We also learned the document type declaration, comments, aside from the other basic formatting tags, and of course character entities. So please don't hesitate to go back and review this video if you need to study and review for the succeeding activities that we will do or that you will have to learn in HTML. Thank you.